Charles Davis of the NFL Network. Of course, their exhaustive draft coverage is where you can see him. He's also on the NFL for CBS as well. You can hear him on Forklift Systems Football Saturday, of course, with Coach Doug Matthews right here on 104.5 The Zone. Charles, thank you for taking some time this morning, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me. Hope you guys are doing well. It's good to see you again since we waved at each other a few times in Indianapolis. And I just love legal tampering. It's my favorite part because it's just like jumbo shrimp when you go to order, you know? I mean, just the oxymoronic nature of it all, but everyone tries to make it feel good. It's kind of like years ago. You remember there were some issues with the Cowboys going on, and one of the players had gotten in trouble. I think it was Michael Irvin. And Jerry Jones said he was trying to do the wrong thing the right way. That's one of the all-time great quotes.
Jerry, just a wordsmith, you know? That's
absolutely.
Just always has something to say.
I remember thinking for all of us out there, could we roll that one? Could we run that one in our situations and see how far that one went?
Yeah. Yeah, it turns out you have to be very, very good at what it is that you do for that to be okay in most workplace settings. Charles, Lucas was just asking me before you jumped on, why do we even bother with the legal tampering thing? Can we not just call it free agency at this point? Because by the time we get to Wednesday at 3 p.m. Central, Charles, like, we're going to know where everybody in the league is going, even if pen hasn't been put to paper.
We're done. I don't know. It's a great question, Buck. I think that ultimately I just kind of count it like old college recruiting when National Signing Date came up. And at a certain time of day when you could start to put the pen to paper and then everything was all okay. We knew where everyone was going, quote unquote. I think the flipping of players has been much more of late. Nowadays, I'm not even involved in it now. But you know what I'm talking about. We used to be, was it the second Tuesday in February or the first Tuesday in February? As soon as the moment started, back when fax machines were a thing, the faxes started piling in with the signatures of the players, and everybody was tallying them up, and we got this kid and we got that kid and the whole deal. That's what this feels like to me. I remember when this thing first started, the legal tampering, there was actually a team that was outside the gates of the player's house waiting for midnight to strike so they could go in and make their pitch. I don't think many of them do it like that anymore, but that's kind of the way I just kind of envision it, go with it. But I think you make a great point. We might as well just call it what it is and call it a day.
Well, obviously, we're not going to call it a day just yet because there's a lot more deals that have to be done. Teams like the Titans and teams across the NFL still have a great many needs to address. Obviously, this sets the table and can help us adjust our thinking or at least help fill in some blanks about what teams are thinking ahead of the draft process, of course, which is the next touch point of the NFL offseason. But, Charles, I guess as you see the kind of deals that are being handed out, quarterback is going to attract the most attention. The amount of quarterback movement that we've seen, understanding that the draft is still yet ahead of us, what did you make of Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, and now Daniel Jones to the Indianapolis Colts on a one-year, $14 million deal?
I think it's a direct correlation to how they view the draft, you know, and I think that I don't have it in front of me. You guys will have it better than I will. Maybe you can jog my memory a little bit. But I don't remember anything close to this free agent quarterback-wise last year because the draft was full of riches with quarterbacks. So, and we really got it, didn't we? I mean, this is one of those times where in my lifetime, most of the times, if you had two quarterbacks taken at the top of the draft, it was essentially one was going to be okay and one was going to struggle.
Yeah.
Like career-wise. It was almost like a 50-50 deal. Last year, there were 6 in the first 12 picks. One of them didn't play at all because he was injured, but the other 5 played. And not only did they played to a level that every one of them is going to be the starter next year. Like it's not even it's not even a discussion point. None is bringing them along slow. They all showed flashes. They essentially proved why they were picked where they were picked. That's really an unusual thing. We'll see how it continues in their career. But this year, Buck, Lucas, when you think about it, we have the 2 at the top, but most times when you talk with people, hey, if you put them in last year's draft, You're talking about two players in Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, or Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. I don't care how you want to group them. Most of them would have to be, I'd say the best rankings would be if they were like the fifth best quarterback in last year's draft. Most of people have them probably right there with Bo Nix, who was the sixth ranked quarterback, okay, and just take it and go from there. Doesn't mean that they're not going to be great pros. We never know. But the feeling of this year and the enthusiasm for going and getting a quarterback early is not quite the same, not even close. That's why I think there's a huge flurry for these veteran quarterbacks that are out there.
Charles Davis here with us on 104.5 The Zone, reacting to day one of legal tampering, if not free agency.
And Charles, free agency is always, and legal tampering, I guess I should say, is always...
Say it correctly, Lucas, or somebody from the league is going to throw you into a van and run away with you.
Throw a bag over my head, drag me out of this studio. But it's just more information, right? And it's more info to add to the equation as we try to decipher what direction these teams are going to go, especially at the top of the NFL draft. Your first mock draft on NFL.com came out about 6 days ago, so obviously before all these moves started flying, and you have the Titans taking Shedeur Sanders, number 1 overall, the Browns taking Cam Ward, number 2 overall. We've now seen the moves the Titans have made, bringing in a veteran left tackle, $82 million contract, signing an off-ball linebacker. They have yet to bring in a free agent quarterback. Is there anything about the last day or so that has impacted your opinion on the Titans and the number 1 overall pick in the draft?
No, it really hasn't. And I love Buck, how you told him, hey, you better get it right. Years ago, if you said a preseason game was an exhibition game, that's when the NFL would have thrown a bag over your head and taken you off. You never use the word exhibition. If you use the word exhibition, they'd lose their mind. It's a preseason game, okay? Anyway, going on from there, nothing's impacted because I'm still thinking the Titans are still in the same spot. Mike Bargonzi, the new general manager, Chad Brinker, who's running everything over there now. I don't see how anything's changed. Are they still open for business at number 1? The answer would be yes. Who's going to call? What kind of offer are we going to get? Do you still consider not taking a quarterback if you get a veteran guy? I haven't seen them pick up a veteran guy. I don't know if they want to go Will Levis and then we'll just see what happens down the road. So I'm not sure that's the thing, because otherwise it opens up Abdul Carter. It opens up Travis Hunter. You get the whole idea. Or you have conviction on a quarterback. You like that guy. You take him. And guys, you know as well as I do, the math has changed so much that you need to keep swinging at the quarterback. Remember the days when you'd swing and miss and your franchise was set back X number of years? That went away. If we didn't know it before the Cardinals moved up to take Josh Rosen at 10 that one year, and he promised to wreak havoc on the league, which he never did. And then the very next year at 1, they took Kyler Murray. That's when, if you didn't know the math before, you learn the new math. You can take a quarterback every year. You can figure it out elsewhere. You have to have that player. So if the Titans have conviction, if they like Shedeur Sanders, if they like Cam Ward, whoever it is, I wouldn't hesitate. I'd go ahead and take him. That's what I would do. But we'll have to see what they get. We'll see what kind of offer. The last thing I'll say is somewhere John Robinson's statement about getting a king's ransom at 1 always rings. This is not the year for a king's ransom is going to be offered.
Charles hasn't, no, and it seems like at this point, depending on how the rest of the day goes or the rest of the next couple of days goes, like it sounds like it's basically the Giants bidding against themselves for the number 1 overall pick. There could be a team out there that we don't know, obviously, but the Giants are the team that is most reported to have interest in that first overall pick. So to your point, though, go ahead, Charles.
Buck, real quick, the Jets kind of eliminated themselves, right?
Yeah.
Right? We're talking Justin Fields, right? 2 years, $40 million, right?
And the Raiders,
that went. Those were the 2 most likely that we're talking about in the top 10, right? I don't know that anyone's going to come up like that year they did for John Robinson, because didn't the Rams start at like 15 and work their way all the way up to 1?
Yes.
I don't see that happening.
Going back to your point about taking swings on quarterbacks until you hit on one.
Yeah.
Hasn't the timeline on coaches and executives in the league been sped up to the point, Charles, where they have no choice but to go about their business that way, regardless of whether that's the best route to developing these young men or not? Because it seems that we are churning and burning through quarterbacks at a higher rate, if for no other reason than the league's patience with coaches and executives has also trimmed down to the point where if you don't get results basically in year 2, we'll find somebody else who can.
I think that you've nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Let's put it to you this way, for amongst the three of us and anyone listening, think back to the last time an executive or a coach went to the podium after getting a new job and announced that he or she had a 5-year plan. They don't exist anymore. That used to be standard. And you expected to get the 5 years, unless things were just so abysmal you had to go after 3 or 4. But those days are long gone. I mean, we're dumping coaches after 1 year at a higher rate than we've ever dumped them before. It is just, no, You've got to go get it, make it happen. And by the way, 19 of the last 21 years, and this year was an exception, right? This is one of the years we didn't. There's been at least one team go from worst to first in the division. 19 of the last 21, I believe, is the number now, after this year when we didn't have it. Every year you get a minimum of 4 or 5 teams that change places in the playoffs. P. Rozelle he wanted this league to be, when he was a commissioner, remember there 14 games then, 7-7, everybody 7-7. He wanted parity. There's a lot of that out there, and you can get right a lot quicker in this league if you do the right things. So I'm with you, Buck. There's just not the same patience for it. There's just not the same appetite. I would say the Giants probably show as much patience as anyone. And they've gone through a string of coaches that were going 2 years. Pat Shurmur was a 2-year. Ben McAdoo was a 2-year. See where I'm going? It's hard. Many thought that Joe Shane and Brian Daboll wouldn't be back this year, especially after the offseason hard knocks. But guess what? They are back. So I know one thing. I wouldn't mind working for the Giants in terms of that. But overall, it's really, really difficult.
They're back, but the offseason hard knock seems like it's going away because no other team wants to be a part of it.
Offseason hard knocks, you guys know exactly why it's gone.
Yeah.
Because once the man walked in the room twice and said how popular Saquon was, and 2, I don't think I'll be able to sleep real well if he goes to Philadelphia. And then he goes for $2,000 and a Super Bowl. But here's the kicker, though. The teams get to vet everything before it goes out.
Yeah.
I think that was the shocker to everyone, like all that went out. Okay.
Charles Davis of the NFL on CBS. Of course, you can watch him on the NFL Network's draft coverage, and you can hear him on 104.5 The Zone with our great friend, Coach Doug Matthews, on Forklift Systems Football Saturdays.
And, of course, the Giants are actively preaching impatience at the moment, Charles. That is the wording from John Mara, that his patience is running pretty thin going into this offseason, and they have yet to make a move at quarterback. You were one of the only ones, probably the only one I've seen so far, mocked.
Only one. No sanity whatsoever.
Well, and you know what? But you're ahead of the...
Why we love you, buddy.
Right, but you're playing chess, not checkers with this stuff because you do not have social media, so you are smarter than the rest of us to stay away from the reaction to this stuff. You did have quarterback taken 1, 2, 3 in your mock draft after the combine with Jackson Dart going 3 overall. And, you know, people might be shocked by that, Charles, but when you look at the way free agency is playing out, and everything trending towards the Titans going quarterback at 1. Adam Schefter has come out and said the thing he is most sure of in this draft is that the Browns will take a QB number 2. The Giants got to be shifting around in their seat a little bit. Maybe it wouldn't be such a shocker if Jackson Dart went all the way up to 3. Certainly stranger things have happened. Was that kind of part of your thought process there?
It was a little bit. The other part is very simply, before, as you mentioned, it went out 6 days ago before the legal tampering, before some of this quarterback movement. But people were already talking about, at 7, could Las Vegas do it, right? Could all these other teams we've talked about in the top 10. I didn't know much of a difference between 3 and 7. And the Giants haven't gotten the quarterback right in ages, okay? They thought they had it with Daniel Jones. They paid him they paid him a king's ransom. That didn't work out real well. At a certain point, what are you going to do? And unless they went out free agent and got one of those guys, and now it certainly appears that one of those guys is not really available for them, unless it's Aaron Rodgers, obviously. What's going to happen? I put it down there much more as fodder for thought. And look, I'm not trying to manipulate things in my mock drafts. Do I want mine to be different than other people's? Absolutely. We all do, right? But I also want to have some plausibility to it. And if people think that a quarterback at 3 isn't plausible, then you haven't been watching this league. Okay. You haven't been checking this thing out. Anybody remember when Christian Ponder got moved up?
Yes.
Anybody remember Jake Locker going?
Oh, yeah. Remember that around here.
So anybody wants to have that conversation with me, I'd have it with you all day. All right. We've seen people go at improbable spots. Now, the Giants, if they really want to win, if they really live right, the Titans will either accept a deal or the Titans will decide to take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. And then you can take Shedeur Sanders at 3. And guess what? It changes everything. It changes your headlines. It changes how people look at you. Because I will say this, one of the biggest Jackson Dart supporters that I know around the league called me when my mock draft came out and said, dude, you know I love that kid. I think he's going to be dynamic. But I don't know about taking him at 3. And I said, we're in the same conversation. Now you're telling me it's too rich? If you like someone, when is it too rich? Okay? Because who was it? Travis Frederick, the center for Cowboys? Remember that one? When he got picked, everybody lost their mind. He's a 3rd rounder. Guy was an all-pro. When you have conviction, oh yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs. Was he supposed to go at 12 to Detroit? Nope. How's that working for him? Pretty darn well. So all I'm saying is, if you like someone, you got to go get them. You don't care about the number. You just go get that guy. I don't know if Jackson Dart's that guy or not, but it's not improbable that a quarterback's in play for the Giants at 3.
It's certainly less improbable than Michael Penix going 8th to the Falcons last year, or for a lot of people, Bo Nix 12th. I mean, to your point, Charles, that's just what it is. He is the legend, Charles Davis. He's doing it all for NFL.com, for the NFL Network, for the NFL on CBS, and as well as hanging out with Coach Doug Matthews on Saturday mornings. Forklift Systems Football Saturdays is where you can hear him regularly on the Zone. Charles, I know you're busy. It's always good to see you. I tried not to bother you too much at the Combine because every time I saw you, you were being dragged around from one table to the next, but it's always good to catch up with you, my friend. Thank you for doing it.
Listen, you're never a bother. I just appreciate you being nice and saying hi. It's always great to see you and Lucas. Thank you for having me on. And how about Coach Matthews, the Hall of Famer? Tennessee Hall of Fame this year. So happy for him, but it's always great to spend time with you guys. Thanks for being flexible today.
That's the main man,
Thanks, Charles
Davis, with us on
Take care, guys.
105 The Zone. Always good to have Charles there with us. And to his point, people get outraged about things that they have no idea how teams think about them. And his mock draft, I think, is as good a testament to that fake outrage every year. Because at least he's willing to take chances on those things other than stick with status quo. Give me something else to talk about other than the same names over and over and over again at the top.
To your point, if somebody mocked on, what's today, March 11th, 2024, Michael Penix, 8th overall to the Falcons,
we would have killed that person.
It would have absolutely been destroyed on social media, wherever. What are you talking about?
Man down, man or woman down. We would have hunted him down.
It would have been right after they paid Kirk Cousins too, the $180 million guy. You idiot. You idiot.
You don't know anything.
Far, far stranger things have happened.